Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch Harlan, and welcome to the Truth Talks podcast. Today, I'm joined by an amazing guest, but before I introduce them to you, I want to ask that you please like and subscribe below. That way, we can continue to bring you these incredible stories. And if you're already liked and subscribed to our channel, we thank you for all of your support. I'm here today with Darrin Chiaverini. Darrin, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, well, here's the deal. It's what we always talk about. I had the inside scoop to you. My wife works out with your wife, and I said, can you get me Darrin? And I figured that's the best option that I had, and it seemed to work out.
Took a long time, but yeah, you end up getting it done.
It did. It did take a long time, and some of you guys take a long time, and it's kind of frustrating, man. We're just like, yeah, just say yes, man. Let's go do this. Don't you do that with your players?
Yeah, we do, but it's hard too. That's a lot of work.
I want to talk a lot about that. So we'll talk. Let's talk about you in specifically today, because we like to always relay a message, always relay a story, and in the story of life, sports is so huge, so incredibly huge. And I'm not polished like some of these guys I know you've done shows with in the past. I'm going to be skipping around a little bit, but we're going to give people something they can really hold on to. So I appreciate you coming here. So first of all, you are the offensive coordinator with the CU Buffaloes.
Correct, I am.
Which is impressive. That's Division I. That's an impressive place to be. But that's not it. You were also a player who then even moved on to the NFL. So we want to talk a little bit about that. I want to talk about what it's like when you were a player and then transitioning to a coach. And then I'm going to throw some other things out there that a lot of parents want to know. And we're going to kind of finalize it with, you're getting to coach with your son right now.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Which is way cool.
Yeah, totally.
That's incredibly cool. So I wanted to talk a little bit, first of all, your coaching rank. So we want to kind of start with the junior college and on up. So tell us who all you've coached.
You know, I mean, I got into coaching probably about 16 years ago, right after I got done playing. And, you know, my first coaching job was at Mount San Antonio College. It's a junior college in California. And, you know, it was interesting just because you're really starting from the bottom. You know, even though I had contacts coming up through the NFL ranks and the college ranks, I really kind of started from the bottom and worked my way up. And, you know, every opportunity I've gotten along the way, it's been through hard work and people that I've met through the process of coaching. And so, you know, you go from Mount Sac to, you know, I interned at UCLA for no money. I remember, you know, what's funny is there's a lot of young coaches that always ask me questions, hey, Coach Chev, how can I get in the profession? And I say, well, if you're passionate about coaching, then go coach, because if you're going to get to this level, at the Power 5 level, it's going to take hard work and dedication, a lot of sacrifice. And I remember driving every day from my home in Corona, California to Westwood, where UCLA is, and that round trip was 120 miles, and I made no money. And my wife's a trooper because she was working, and she was kind of supporting us while I was chasing this dream of coaching. And so I always give these young kids the advice, like, hey, if you want to coach, then go coach. You know, you're not going to make any money starting out. Yeah. And you got to be willing to do those things. And so I remember just making that transition to UCLA for a year, and then ended up going to Riverside City College as the assistant head coach. And we built that program to a dominant force where we won 40-something games in 4 years. And then, you know, then Cliff Kingsbury, who I knew Cliff through playing, but I didn't know him as a coach. And so there was a buddy of mine that was on that staff named David Rye, who is now the offensive coordinator at Vanderbilt. And he was a buddy of mine, and he goes, you know, he told Cliff that he should hire me. And so Cliff knew who I was from our playing days, and he just called me out of the blue and said, hey, man, I'm interested in you. Are you interested in Texas Tech? And I was, you know, working at a junior college. I'm like, yeah, I'm interested. And so I drove down to the Holiday Bowl where they were playing Arizona State in the Holiday Bowl, and met Cliff. And, you know, he seemed really interested in me, and he said he wanted to interview me for the special teams coordinator job. And I said, yeah, sure, I would love to. So he flew me out to Lubbock about 2 weeks later after the bowl game. I interviewed with him, and then I didn't hear from him for about 3 weeks. And so I'm texting him like, hey, man, what's going on? Kind of bugging him, and he probably got tired of me bugging him. So just like you,
yeah, how's that feel?
Texting me,
how's that feel
for this podcast, And Cliff called me. He goes, "Hey man, you ready to go?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm ready." So he hired me right out of junior college. It's a pretty interesting story, getting hired as a full-time on-field coach at Division I level out of a junior college. And so I was at Tech for 2 years, and then I got the call from Colorado to come be the coordinator. And what's been interesting, I've been the coordinator for two of the head coaches that I've worked for here, and going on my 6th season. So it's pretty interesting how things work out. But it's been good.
Not everybody likes to go around toot their own horn when they're on a podcast, but yeah, I mean, your records actually speak a lot of volume for your coaching ability. You've turned a lot of programs and done some amazing, amazing things.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to be around good players and good coaches. You don't do it alone in this profession, especially in football. And so been fortunate at the junior college level to have some good coaches I've been with. I coach with Tom Kraft, who's still there as the head coach, and he's a great guy. And we were able to kind of turn that program around by recruiting locally and building it back up to where it is now. And then, we had a big turnaround at Colorado my first year back, and went 8-1 in the conference, and won the South. And so it's been a journey. There's no question that coaching is a journey, just like playing was. And we've been able to build some good things, and we're going to do that here with Coach Durrell as well.
Here's what I always kind of wonder. You're number 6. You're ripped. You got your Colorado Buffalo jersey on. What's it like as a player running out that tunnel? Now, I know you came from California. Were you from a big high school?
I grew up in Corona, California. I went to Corona High School, and it was we were, I believe, a 3A school, which is a decent-sized school in California. And but yeah, we played big-time high school football in California, and then when you get to CU and you get a chance to run behind Ralphie, and it's pretty special when you can do that as a player. And I was just a young kid from California that wanted to play big-time college football, and at the time Colorado was one of the top programs nationally in the 90s, and I honestly thought I was going to go to UCLA. They had recruited me pretty heavily, but there was something different about Boulder. I kind of fell in love with the mountains, fell in love with the city, and it was different than where I grew up. And obviously the rest is history, because I come here, have a good career, and then get drafted by Cleveland. But yeah, playing this game is special. I think a lot of kids nowadays take it for granted, thinking that it's always going to be there, and it's not. And it takes a lot of hard work and sacrifice if you want to be a good player. If you want to be a great player, it takes even more. So, I was fortunate enough to be a good player here at CU and do some good things on the field. And getting drafted on draft day was pretty special as well, being with my family. So,
and I want to talk about that.
A lot of good times.
That's got to be cool. We did Jacob Slavin on a podcast, and it was the coolest thing when this guy was sitting there talking. He was like, he gets drafted, some tons of money, right? Mm-hmm. And he goes out and he tells his dad, he says, "I got drafted." His dad was on the lawnmower, and he just kind of gives him a thumbs up and keeps on going, right? So I want to talk a little bit about that, what that draft experience is like. This is what we always hear, the speed between high school, college, and the NFL. Mm-hmm. Can you explain to people what that means?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest jump, I tell players all the time, and I tell parents, the biggest jump that a kid's going to make is high school to college. College to the NFL is not as much of a jump. I mean, I felt like when I got to Cleveland, it was a little bit faster, but not like it was from high school to college. When you go from high school to college, the game is so fast. And even the kids that we bring in nowadays, that I can tell when we start practicing, they're like, wow, this is different. So there's a big jump from high school to college to the pros. Not as much, because you're kind of prepared for it when you get there.
So, you got this, I'm a dad, you're a dad. I think anybody who loves sports, they want to see their kid go on to that next level. When you're 6'2", about 210, is that where you were when you played?
I was when I played. I'm a little bigger now.
Well, I wasn't going to say that because you're way bigger than me. But you're 6'2", 210, that's a big guy. It's a big guy. So as a player, obviously there's some advantage of that. When you're looking at coaching, is size a big thing for you guys?
Yeah, I look for length and I look for athleticism. I really don't get too concerned with like 40 times, because I think those range. But I want to see how fast they play on film, and I want to see how long they are when I see them in person. So those are two things that I really look at when I'm looking for receivers.
What about personality? When you talk to them, are you looking for somebody? I mean, do you get inside their head and say, hey, this is going to be a worker, this guy's going to work real hard?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's different for us as college coaches is that you have to sign these kids. It's not like pro football where you're drafting kids. So, you want to get to know these kids, through the recruiting process, and that's usually about a year to 2 years. And so I feel them out. I try to find out if I think they're football savvy, if they have football smarts. And, there's guys that I've moved on from because I just didn't think they were smart enough to play for us. And so I think that as a coach, you need to go through that, and you need to do your homework and talk to their high school coach and talk to their assistant coach, the guy that coaches them, and get a feel for who they are as a person. Because they can play football, that's why you're recruiting them, but you want to get to know them as a person too.
That's one of the things that I think about all the time. Here, a lot of our plays in high school football was, 44 dive, right? Where then all of a sudden you get these behind the scenes, the mic'd up guys, and it's Z right, left,
Yeah,
13,
that's true.
and I can see how the smarts would be an incredible part about finding these kids.
There's no question. I mean, I believe, when you're teaching a system to a kid, you want to see how well he retains the information, whatever it is, quarterbacks or running backs, receivers, tight ends. You want to see how quickly they can retain it, and then obviously get on the field and perform. So there's definitely a process to it.
Is there an exception, like 6'3", 250, 4'3", 40? And
Oh, yeah, and there's always going to be the exceptions to the rule. I mean, Laviska Chenault was one of those. When I watched him in high school, he was playing tight end, and I'm like, this kid's going to be a phenomenal receiver, and he wasn't even playing receiver. So, yeah, there's definitely exceptions to the rule for sure.
In your line of work, let's be real, it's about winning.
Oh, yeah, it is.
If you don't win,
No,
they're getting somebody else in there.
it's the profession that we're in. It's just the same thing when I was in college athletics as a player, and the same thing when I was in pro sports as a player. I mean, you got to win to keep your job, to elevate your job. It's just that this is what we do, and we know that. I've been very aware of that since I've been here. And we play well, people are all going to pat you on the back. When you don't, they're going to send hate mail. So it's just the way it goes.
Which I had a sentence about that because in the stands, everybody here's what's going on in the stands. Hey man, what the hell, Darrin, up the middle ain't working.
No, everybody's got the answer, but it's harder than people think. It really is.
Well, of course, and that's why they're in the stands, right? I mean, there's a big difference there. Obviously, we know, I didn't really want to talk too much about COVID because I just wanted it to absolutely go away. But I mean, obviously, as a coach, winning is your job. When you can't recruit these kids and do the things when you have a pandemic and all that stuff, is that going to affect you guys for the next couple of years?
I'm sure there'll be some, repercussions from the COVID recruiting, but we don't know yet. I mean, I do feel like watching these freshmen work out that it's a talented group. It is. I think we did a good job of evaluating over film and over Zoom and all those kind of things that we had to do. But I do think it's a solid group so far. We'll see how it plays out.
So as a player, taking your experience from a player into the coaching realm, you recruit these kids, the kids come in, they're now CU Buffalo football players, right? Mm-hmm. What do you do? Like, how do you motivate these guys? Do you give them all the life lessons, or is it about game planning, execution, or are you trying to kind of do a combination of all that?
It's a combination of all that, but, really, I'm with them for, 3 to 4 years, sometimes 5 years if they redshirt, and I really try to teach them life lessons through the game of football and try to grow them up and develop them as young men. And I tell their parents the same thing, that, yeah, the ultimate goal is obviously to graduate and play pro football. But in the meantime, while we're doing that, we're going to chase, obviously, our academic goals, but I want to develop them as young men. And, it's more important to me that they become good people off the field. They're here to play football. We know that. And I'm going to develop them, and I've shown in the past to develop good players and the guys I've coached. But more importantly, I want them to be, good dads, good husbands when it's all said and done. And because football is going to end for all of us at some point. It did for me when I was 27, and I had to find, my different journey into coaching. But for these players, I think a lot of them think that's the NFL or nothing, and I don't want them to see there's more to life than just football. And so I really focus on that as well.
Did you bring in a lot of your personal life experience?
No doubt. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's what makes it special is that I've been there. I've sat in their shoes. I've walked the walk that they're walking right now, and I can teach them how to do things the right way.
When you were a player, did you want to get close to the coach?
Like Carl Durrell was actually my position coach. People don't know that, but I played for Carl. So I always had a lot of respect for coaches. Never would talk back to them. It was yes sir, no sir. I think that's what's changed a little bit with kids nowadays. They want to know why. Back when I played, you did it.
Right.
The coach says, hey, you doing this? Okay, yes, sir. Now they want to know why they're doing it. It's a little different culture nowadays. But yeah, I always had a lot of respect for my coaches, and I learned a lot from Carl, and that's probably why I'm sitting in this seat today.
When you get to that college rank, a lot of times it feels like you're lost. You're coming, especially D1, you're coming from California. You may not have a single soul that you know that went to see you. So you're kind of that lost guy out there.
Yeah.
Do you guys try and meld those guys in and make it a family really quickly?
I do. I really try to get to know them and build trust. I think that's important. I think any kid, if he trusts you, he's gonna run through a wall for you, and he'll open up to you as well. A lot of these kids don't even, I've coached a lot of these kids that don't have dads, that grew up without a dad, and so I try to be a father figure for them, try to help, like I said, develop them, as young men, not only as a football player, but just their life skills and how they're going to develop, as they go through the college ranks. So as you're going through the work and the journey of being a college athlete, you can do it the right way. You don't have to treat them, badly. You don't have to talk down to them. You can coach them hard and still love them, and that's what I try to do as a coach.
Obviously, as an OC, it's all about scoring points, right?
Right.
So you may find this kid who is a running quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Do you build a team around a running scheme, or are you looking for raw talent that you can say, okay, this is how we're going to scheme up our offense? And do you plan your offense for 4 years out if this guy is a running quarterback versus a throwing quarterback?
You definitely have to build it off your talent. And so what I mean by that is I don't have a set offense, say this is what we're going to run, this is only what we're going to run. If the quarterback is a dual threat kid, we're going to do, like, when we had Cepho, Cepho was probably more of a dual threat. Before I'd gotten here, he had been more of a pocket passer. And when I got here, we'd looked at the offense and said, hey, this guy is a really good runner. He's tough. He's a great leader. How can we maximize his potential? And what we were able to do is kind of, build the offense around Cepho to where it was more quarterback run game and some play action drop back for him. And it really showed his gifts came out in those games where he was running around and making plays. And even now we have two different types of quarterbacks with Brendan Lewis and JT Shrout, and they're going to be competing for the starting job. And Brendan's a definite dual threat guy, very athletic. You saw that in the bowl game against Texas. So yeah, you want to build it around their strengths, and we do that as an offensive staff. We sit down and say, hey, what can these guys do, and how can we build it? And then JT's a guy that's really a natural passer, drop back, pocket passer, and so he is athletic, but probably not as athletic as Brendan. So you have to play to their strengths, and whoever's in there, that's how we're going to run the offense.
In this new world we live in with the social media and all of that good stuff, is it harder? I mean, obviously, and I think most people who've ever played the game understand this, that obviously CU's a Division I. This is as big as football as you can get. But with the social media, some of these other teams get a lot more hype. And do you find that people want to go just for the hype?
Yeah, people do. I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to winning. I think as our brand will grow as we win more games. If you're going to compete with the Alabamas or the Clemsons of the world, you gotta be on that level. We haven't shown to be on that level yet. So I think as we continue to build this program with Coach Durrell and we win, big games on national television, then it's gonna elevate your brand and kids will want to come.
Tell me, whenever you watch a college game, there's so many people that I know that actually prefer college over the NFL because it's the kind of that raw, natural talent. And if it's something we can't talk about, then great. But, there's this kind of thing swirling around about paying these players to play in the college. Is that something that you can comment on?
Well, that's that name, image, likeness just got passed. And I think it's a good thing for the players. I do believe that there needs to be a national bill put in place by Congress. I don't think that they should leave it up state to state, because if you leave it up state to state, then certain states are going to cheat.
Yeah, you're not
just
going to
because they're going to want to pay them more to get them at their school. So in my opinion, to do it the right way is to make a national bill for all the Power 5 schools, and they all follow the same rules. And there's a certain amount that these guys can make, in my opinion. Because I think if you open it up, then, it basically turns into pay for play is what it turns into. And so I think there needs to be more regulation. It's so new right now with this getting passed. I think the NCAA didn't want to deal with it, so they kind of passed it. But I do believe the kids need to be compensated. I do. but what is that? What does that look like? And so I think we're just scratching the surface of this thing, and it's going to be a couple of years before it kind of gets settled down.
That's kind of where I thought that would go because, obviously if it's pay to play, they're going to go where they get the most money unless there's some sort of rule that it's all the same or
That's
something of
right.
that
Yep.
nature. But it's an interesting topic to say the least because they do generate a lot of money,
Yeah.
generate a lot of interest in the universities. I think most people would agree that football pretty much gives recognition to about every school that's out there. But it's an interesting concept. I mean,
It is. I do think they deserve it. I do. I just think there needs to be a way that they can do it where it's not lopsided for certain schools over other schools, because that's what's going to come down to. Well, this school can give me 60 grand for this car dealership commercial, and you guys want to give me 20.
right.
That becomes interesting.
Guess
to
where
me.
I'm going. I'm going to go get the 60.
That's right.
Especially when I'm 18, 19, 20
Yeah,
years
course.
of age.
And the
Kidding me?
parents are going to be like, yeah, I would have been the same way. If someone say, hey, Darrin, we're going to give you 50 grand to come be on the cover of this pizza box, I'm going to go do that.
Like, let's go knock some of that.
I think it's a good thing for the players. I really do. I just hope that we can kind of, there can be a national law where they're all making the same, where that there's a cap on what they can make. So we'll see. I don't know where it's going to go, honestly.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. I mean, and I think you can go a whole bunch of different ways with that type of thing. One of the other questions I want to talk just a second here is, how does a guy 6'3", 205 pounds, a little underweight, from, say, Wiggins, Colorado, 8-man football team, how does he get recognized by a guy like you?
I think talent shows up on tape. I do. I think if you're a good player, people are going to find you. I do think camps are a good thing. We have camps at our school, and every year in the summer where we find talent from Colorado. But yeah, I think if you're a good player, people are going to find you. I really believe that. And so we've picked up a lot of kids that have just come to camp and worked out for us. So I think that's a good way to kind of find talent.
What about sending in their highlight reels and stuff like that? Does that get, I mean, I know NCAA has a ton of different rules that they come out with every year, but do people send in, especially with COVID, they send in their talents? One of the things that that producer Chad does here, he does a lot of filming for these high school recruit kids and does their highlight reels. Is that something that you guys look at?
Yeah, we do. We have a recruiting department that we have interns that watch tape and they eval them, and if they think they're good players, and they pass them on to the assistants. So yeah, we do look at all those kind of things for sure.
Okay, well then I'm going to go down this line since you just took me down it, right? So you got this assistant. When does that player get to see your eyes?
Well, the way it works is, I have a recruiting intern that watches the tape. He evals it. If he feels like he is a good player, then he'll pass him on to me like within a week, and I'll watch him. If I like him, then I'll pass him back to the recruiting department and say, yeah, I like this kid. Have Coach Terrell watch him. I would like to offer this kid. That's kind of how it goes.
Yeah, and so obviously there's 24 hours in a day, and there's millions of these kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
How in the world, how many can you get through?
Well, I mean, I probably watch a couple hundred kids a week, in the off season. During the season, I don't watch them as much, but in the off season, we'll watch a couple hundred kids a week, just through eval, and then it won't take long to tell if a guy's a good player. I mean, I can watch 30 seconds of a kid and say, yeah, this kid has a chance, or no, he's not good enough. So, you got to trust your eyes and trust your evaluation, and it moves pretty quickly from there.
So for these kids out here, have you ever seen a kid and you said, hey, I think you ought to go JUCO for a couple of years?
Well, junior college is not a bad thing. I coached junior college football for 7 years, and I worked with a lot of players that were really good players that for whatever reason got overlooked. Maybe it was their grades, maybe it was just they're a tweener height-wise. But at Riverside, we had a lot of good players come through. Some of those guys are in the NFL now. And so I don't think that's a bad thing. I tell people this all the time. I said, listen, there's a level for everybody, whether it's Division I, Division II, Division III, NAIA. At the end of the day, you're looking to get your school paid for. And so I tell kids, never turn down an opportunity. Yeah, the dream is to play Division I college football. I get that. But don't ever look an opportunity and say, oh, that's not, I'm better than that. Because if you say no to that opportunity, the other one might not come. So I tell kids all the time, and I tell parents, like, at the end of the day, the goal is to get your school paid for. It's not the level you play. So I always try to give that advice to people.
So here's another question that always comes up. I got a buddy of mine who he ended up coaching Division I baseball. Played in the Cardinals organization for, I think it was 8 years or so. And he's from my small hometown of 2,500 people. And one of the things that he would always say to me, he says, I love the kids that play multiple sports. He says, because if I get a kid that's done nothing but played baseball since he was barely put on a helmet, he says he is burnt out by the time he gets to me. Do you feel that same way?
Yeah, I mean, I love kids that are multi-sport. You know, they play baseball, basketball, football. Obviously, you know, at the end of the day, you're looking for a good player. So I'm not going to turn down a good player just because he doesn't play basketball. But yeah, I always think that it definitely helps round kids out. It makes them, you know, I think probably more appreciative of the work because you're playing multiple sports. But yeah, I never turned down a good player.
Where do you guys have different zones that you recruit from? I mean, do you typically start out the 5A high schools and work your way down, or again, is it just mainly film and?
It's by region, not necessarily by class, but you know what we do is we have 9 assistant coaches. So what we do is they all have certain areas, whether it's in Colorado or in California or in Texas or wherever it may be, and it's the assistant coach's job to make sure they know their area and know what players are in their area, and then obviously pass them along to the recruiting department, and so we can do the evaluation process. But yeah, we don't do it so much by like 3A, 4A, 5A. We do it more by like, hey, you have this part of Dallas, you have this part of Colorado, you have this part of California. So kind of do it that way.
Coaching is much more difficult than anyone really realizes, isn't it?
Oh, it is difficult. You know, it's high level college football, and you know we got to perform, and you got to, like you said, you got to win to stay.
Yeah,
You know.
it's kind of a brutal thing, right? Like it almost should be like how every job would be if you really want to get the maximum production of anybody. Listen, if you don't do this, you're gone, man. I mean, it's a lot of pressure, and I want to talk a little bit about that because there's a delineation there psychologically with, you know, you want these kids to do well, but then again, the level of win depends on your job as well. Is that all part of getting the kids to buy into the whole winning process, the winning culture?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I think Coach Terrell does a really good job with our team of just developing a team atmosphere and understand that it takes all of us working together to win games. It's not just one player or one coach. It's the team atmosphere that really gets it done. And so, yeah, I mean, I think you're constantly working on that team chemistry because I do believe we have a lot of good players, and you know you got to get them to kind of come together and commit to what we're trying to do together.
And then, you know, a lot of times what we hear, and especially going around even right now in the NBA, is injuries, right? And these injuries, has it really changed dramatically from when you were a player to your time in the NFL to coaching now with this, you know, the chronic head traumas and so on and so forth, the concussions?
Yeah, I think, you know, what's changed the most is just the head injury stuff. I think when I was playing, you didn't realize like when you got your bell rung, you're really getting a concussion.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. And so I think, you know, nowadays there's so much, you know, high alert put on the brain injury and CTE and all the things that come along with playing this game. At the end of the day, it's still a contact sport. And there's going to be collisions, there's going to be big hits. I think, you know, the game as far as college football and pro football, they're trying to do the best they can to minimize that with technology, with the helmets, less hitting in practice, you know. But at the end of the day, it's still a contact sport. There's still going to be some of that goes on.
Which everybody loves, though. That's the whole reason people love football. It's still a warrior sport, right?
It is. I mean, it's still like, that's why people line up, you know, every weekend to watch these games because it's still America's game for sure.
Tell me the difference between your college experience and going to the NFL. There seems like there's so much hype. There's so much just crazy fun atmosphere at the college level. And then when you go to the NFL, it seems more business-like. What is your experience from that?
I would agree with you. I think the college game, the atmosphere that you get at the games because you got the students is totally different than pro football. Pro football, it's, you know, families at the games. There's no bands.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely a different vibe that you get, and I definitely enjoy the college atmosphere more than the pro atmosphere.
I think that's a big consensus, and that's where I was kind of bringing up that question about the paying of the athletes, because that's what people love about the big Division I football is that it's a pure sport. These guys are still trying to earn their way up to that big paycheck at the end of the day. And so you know, it's like this pure form of it, right? It's still Warriors, but it's pure form Warrior. It's kind of an interesting. It's really an interesting type of transition there. Do your players, do they really respect the value that you played in the NFL?
I think so. I mean, they play the position that I played. And so I tell them all the time, I say, when you guys get to the NFL, just give me a call, okay? Because it's hard. So, yeah, I think they do. They look at my old films and they'll always say, hey, Coach Chev, man, you were a good player. And I say, I appreciate that. But I think it goes farther with those kids when they know that you've done it at the highest level possible and, you know, made multiple NFL rosters. So I really try to just, you know, give them my knowledge, things that I went through, and try to help cultivate their journey along college football.
Yeah, you got drafted by the Cleveland Browns. Then you also played with Dallas Cowboys and Atlanta Falcons, right?
Yes, I did.
Which is awesome. I mean, that's just, you get to see these stadiums and just the differences. I can't even imagine. But here's the thing, I got to bring this up because I want to know this personally. In college, I want to know that one play where you got your shit cleaned. You remember the guy's name? Was it across the middle?
In college, not so much. I remember the NFL, Cardi Nickerson, I was playing for Cleveland, and I ran like an option route, and I came out of the break, and our quarterback, Tim Couch, kind of led me a little bit. And Hardy Nickerson was like 6'2", probably 250, and just totally decleated me. It was on like the cover of like the Madden game, and it was just, every time I see that hit, I'm like, man, I don't know how I got up from that. Knocked me out of the game. So thanks, Hardy. Appreciate that one.
Yeah, appreciate cleaning that sock. That's what I mean, some of these hits are just incredible. And I am sure even in the time that you played to the time you're coaching, just the physiques of these guys are insane.
Yeah, the kids have gotten bigger, I think more athletic than even when I played. And, you know, I played with some really athletic people like Michael Vick and those kind of guys. But, you know, the kids nowadays, even the receivers that I coached, like Brendan Rice and Daniel Arias, these guys are all 6'2", 6'3", and they run like 4.4s, and it's a different athlete nowadays for sure.
All right, Coach, I got to ask you this. Kansas City Chiefs have done something pretty good with shorter receivers that are just lightning fast.
Mm-hmm.
What's your input on it? You like the big guys?
You know, I think you need a variety on your roster. I think it can't be all big, can't be all small. And, you know, if you look at the Chiefs, they do have a couple guys like Tyreek Hill and those guys that are little, but they have some 6-footers on that roster as well. So I think it's a combination of both. You want guys that can really run and stretch the field, and you want those bigger guys that can separate and, you know, in the intermediate slants and digs and those kind of routes. So and our roster has the same. If you look at our roster, we got guys that are 6'2" and above, and we have some guys that are 5'11", 5'10", 5'9". So it's a combination, in my opinion.
You know, at Division I, these kids are obviously they're athletic. They're good. They're great. They were probably great high school. Mm-hmm. Is that a hard transition for someone to go be super great in high school and be pretty average at the Division I league? Yeah. And average meaning really still a great athlete.
Yeah, it is hard for a lot of those kids. And all these guys were all state and, you know, all Americans in high school, and now they have to come compete just to play, you know. And so I do think it's a hard transition for kids. It was a hard transition for me. I mean, I remember, you know, I led the state of California in receiving my senior year in California, and then I come to Colorado, and I'm not even playing. You know, I caught like 3 balls my first year.
Yeah.
I caught 7 my second year, and then I caught like 50 and 50. But yeah, it's hard. It's a hard it just shows how much work you got to put in to play at this level. And some guys will do it, and some guys won't. And so you got to find the ones that really want to do it.
For some of these kids, this is their ticket to an education, and then potentially a ticket to what they want to do in
Mm-hmm.
life. So, I mean, the game actually becomes a little bit of a business and more important to them. Do you find it's easier to motivate them at the D1 level?
You would think, right?
You would think.
But no. You know, like I said, these kids have so much going on outside of football, and then sometimes some of these kids just don't love football. And so you try to find the ones that really love football and that want to compete, because that's one thing that if I have to motivate you to play hard, then it's going to be hard for you, because I can't always motivate you. You have to motivate yourself. You know, it has to come from within, that you want to attack practice and you want to get better, because the games will take care of themselves. And when the games come and there's all those fans in the stands, and you're naturally going to be motivated to want to play hard. But if you haven't put the work in during practice, you're not going to play at the level you want to play at. So Yeah, I'm constantly trying to motivate these guys, but I tell them all the time, I shouldn't have to motivate you every day to get going.
So what about the other thing that is I've seen in these big universities like University of Colorado, like the weight rooms are amazing.
Yeah.
The treatment facilities are amazing. The doctors are all amazing. That's just it's an incredible kind of transition. Do you guys have health teams that get these guys on good nutrition, get them on supplementation, get them on stuff to help them, teach them yoga to be limber and avoid injury and all that? Is that part of what you guys do?
Yeah, we do. We have a dietitian that has, structured meal plans for our kids. We obviously have a strength staff. We have a training staff. This is what college football has turned into. It's really a step below pro football, and we have all the bells and whistles to compete with other schools, because it comes down to recruiting too. Because when kids come on your campus, the parents want to see what you're doing to help their kid achieve their goals. And so it's two-part. One is recruiting, and the second part is performance. And so we have all those things in place so these guys can play at a high level.
I think that's what a lot of high school kids, they don't focus on. They're out there, they're doing their drinking, they're having their fun and whatever else, and they're not focused on their nutrition and focused on all these different things that you've got to have at that level.
I didn't either. We used to eat blackjack pizza and drink beer and then go play.
You were 6'2", 210.
It's changed. I remember it's totally changed. I remember Thursday we'd go hang out up on the hill and then go win games on Saturdays, but it's different now. You can't do that and perform at the level you want to perform at. And so there's a lot more goes into it than it did when I played.
Well, I had a question in here about that was when you have your team meetings, you tell them, listen, I'm the coach now, so don't do what I used to do.
Totally. Can't do this, guys. And some of them are not as good as I was either, so you guys got to try a little bit harder than I did.
There's certain things now that I'm the father figure you can't do, which is go to the hill on Wednesday night.
That's right. I tell them, you guys, there ain't no trick that you guys are going to pull that I haven't already pulled, so don't think I don't know what you're doing.
Which I think that is the value, though, right? I think that's a valuable thing, being the player to the coach.
It really is, and it's been a good transition. It's been a lot of hard work, but very rewarding at the same time.
So I also want to kind of go down this. So this is kind of a fun thing. It's kind of an honor. In one article, you called it a blessing, but you get to actually, your son is now into coaching. He was a player also at CU.
Yeah, Curtis. It's really cool to do that with him, because not many dads get the chance to coach at this level with their sons, and so it has been a blessing to see him grow up from a young kid. He didn't even like football when he was younger. I remember we used to put him in Pop Warner, and he was miserable. I used to tell my wife, Shannon, I'm like, he's not going to be a football player. And I said, I'm okay with that. I said, I'm okay with that. He can do what he wants to do. And as he got older, he kind of got into it more and more, and then he became a good high school player. And then he walked on at CU, and he worked his way up and, played in some games, played against Nebraska. The game we beat him, we were down, I think, 19-0 at halftime. To see his evolution through the game, and now he's coaching. He's going to be a good football coach. And I told him, I said, Curtis, nothing's going to be given to you just because you're my son, and you have to do it the hard way, and you got to work, and you got to listen, and you got to learn. And he's willing to do all those things, and he's got a good rapport with the players. I noticed when he talks to the players, they respect him and they listen to him, and it's been fun. This is his second year this year as a student coach, and then he'll become a graduate assistant the next year, and he's working his way up, just like I did.
Coaching's a tough deal. I got to kind of live through that with my buddy Steve, and working at the lower ranks, and then just gradually getting up based on how well you do. And but he has so many things. He's like, my God, he says, sometimes down here when I was coaching JUCO was some of the best coaching I'd ever done.
Yeah,
and
true.
It's an interesting
true. Some of the best coaches that I've coached with were in the junior college ranks, and people think because you're a Division I coach or because you're an NFL coach, you're better than other people, and you're not. You got to put the work in, and you got to be willing to grind. You got to be willing to get up early, and during the season, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm in the office by 5 a.m. every morning, and I don't get home until 10 at night. You got to be willing to work, and if you're not willing to work, or if you get in this profession for the money, you'll never make it. And I tell young coaches all the time, because some guys want to jump right into Division I college football, and I said, you're not ready. I wasn't ready, and I played pro football for 7 years. You have to learn how to coach. You have to learn how to game plan. You have to learn how to coach your room and develop your room. And if you don't do that at a lower level and kind of work your way up, you won't be ready when you get there. When you get there, and if you're not ready when you get that opportunity, you're going to fail and you're going to wash out.
Yeah.
And so my advice to a lot of coaches, a lot of young coaches, you want to coach, go coach. Don't worry about money. You're not going to make any money in this profession. I didn't make any money in this profession probably until I got to Texas Tech. And so but I wasn't in it for money. I was in it because I was passionate about developing young men and teaching them life lessons through the game of football. And yeah, when you get to this level, it's high stakes, but you're ready, you're prepared to do it when you get there.
So I kind of want to wrap this up a little bit with being a coach at Division I. I mean, there is another level called the NFL. You start as a player, you work yourself up to the NFL through the college ranks. Is that your aspiration? Do you have any aspirations in NFL?
You know, I wouldn't say no, but I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now. I really enjoy recruiting kids and getting to know them and getting a chance to develop them from the time they're 17 all the way up to 21, 22. You don't really get that in pro football. Pro football is more, they're going to tell you who you're going to coach. And, you know, if you don't get it done, then they're going to move on. But to me, I really like building those relationships with young men and helping them develop their skill set so they get a chance to play on that level. Not saying that if the NFL called, I wouldn't look at the opportunity. But right now my focus is on the University of Colorado and helping us get back to a national level.
All right, so we're not going to, well, maybe we are. Maybe we can always edit this stuff. That's how it works. But who is the rawest, most unbelievable athlete you've ever coached?
No, LaVisca, Chenault. I mean, that he's a freak. I mean, I saw it when he was in high school. And I was fortunate enough to get him to come play for me at Colorado. But you'll see him this year at Jacksonville. He is just a dominant player. And the only thing that's held him back is he's had some injuries. But I think he's going to take off this year in the NFL.
Now, do a lot of these guys after their career, obviously I'm getting ready to do a podcast with my ex-coach, do they stay in touch with you?
Yeah, they do.
That's
I
awesome.
still get text messages from kids, and I like to stay in touch with them anyways because I want to see how they develop after football. And I tell them that when you play for me, it's more than just a player-coach relationship. I want to see you do well after you get done playing. And like I said, be a good dad, be a good husband, be a good, mentor to your kids, And so I think that's important to stay in touch with these guys.
Well, I tell you what, I'm a CU Buffalo fan, man, even more now. And I thought you'd bring me some swag, but you knew I had a year eligibility left.
That's right. That's right.
I appreciate you coming on our show, man. Thanks for really opening up and telling us a little bit about coaching and what it's all about. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on.
All right, and next time
no more text messages now.
No more text messages. You're good to go, brother.
All right, thanks, man.
You bet.